So you hear a lot that discipline is only masculine. So should a woman be disciplined? By the end of this video, you'll understand what the feminine version of discipline really is and why all women absolutely need it. My name is Alex. I'm a somatics and mindfulness coach. I have been with my fair share of trial and error with feminine and masculine energies. And in particular, I've been really struggling with this concept of discipline, which is something that I've been integrating a lot in my life, but for a long time, I wasn't really paying attention to the fact that it was leading me into my masculine energy. So before we go into the concept of discipline and how it can be adapted to your feminine side, let's just understand what are we actually talking about, this masculine, feminine thing. Let's dive into this a little bit deeper. So first of all, I'd like to really emphasize that when we talk about masculine or feminine energies, we're really not connecting it to gender. These are energies that have been described in so many ways in various traditions and cultures. In yogic philosophy, for instance, it's the two energies that organize the body, Ida and Pingala, or Shiva and Shakti. These kind of opposing energies, the yin and the yang, and so many other ways to express it. These are two complementary forces that organize your energy, your behavior, but also your thoughts and your interactions. And balancing these energies is really key to your overall well-being. Each and every one of us will have a tendency or an inclination towards a certain energy over another. And this also could be periodic. So over a certain period of your life, you would have a more inclination to a certain energy, feminine or masculine, over another period of time. For each individual, there is an ideal composition or balance between these two energies. It might not be 50-50, it might be more towards a certain than the other, but that's the energy that will feel more comfortable to you or be your default. And then it could be also based on the needs of your current life situation, so you could switch from one to the other. A lot of the times we could be out of alignment with our default setting, let's say, by leaning into the opposite side. Sometimes this inclination could be in opposition with what we really, really want to be deep inside of us, or what feels better as an energy for our bodies. For instance, we could be biologically a woman and feel like a woman, but go rather into the masculine energy, because this is how we manage the situation that is currently our environment. And this masculine energy helps us in a certain way, and it's like a coping mechanism with what we are facing at this point in our life. But this is not the state that we feel the most comfortable in this particular example. Maybe for another person this would be their state, but for that person, it's not what they really want to be. This is a case that I have been through myself. So I was in my masculine energy to strive, to get things done, and I was also very, very disciplined. And that's why I had this questioning that came to mind, whether discipline is actually something that's only connected to the masculine energy. So let's look a little bit deeper to characterize each of these energy, of these opposing poles. On the one side, we have the feminine energy. The characteristics of the feminine energy are intuition, their creativity. They're a bit chaotic, so it's a little bit unpredictable, unstructured. It's passive. It's a thing where you wait for things to come to you, or kind of expect and trust that things will come to you. It's softness. It's empathy. It's feeling what the other is feeling. It's a lot of stillness, it's a lot of receptivity, and kind of surrender. So you let things go. That is really the characteristic of a feminine energy. I like to give it a picture or a visualization. The idea of the flower works really well because a flower is static. It's rooted in one place and it's just beautiful and it's there. And it knows that it doesn't need to go anywhere for things to come to it, like bees, pollen, whatever it is. They will come. It just has to be there and make it challenging for things to come to her. Only the best stuff can come to the flower because it's just a part of how it is. it makes things struggle to get to it. And as a result, this filters out only the best things, only the most adapted things to come the way of the flower. So this is a bit what feminine energy is about. On the other side, masculine energy is the opposite. It's really action, it's proactivity, it's logic, assertiveness, and ambition. It's also courage, focus, and decisiveness. So the ability to do cutthroat decisions. So if we come back to that flower analogy, to imagine what could be the masculine to the flower, could be pollen or could be the bee, which struggles to get to the flower, has to take action, has to fight, and has to confront difficulty to get to the flower. So it's more a movement, it's more of a doing rather than being. Like the flower is more being, the masculine, the pollen, is more doing and moving. It also values, as opposed to the chaotic feminine energy, the masculine energy values structure, organization, and, you guessed it, discipline. So that's why this discipline, you imagine army or imagine a very male environment, you can see discipline is really at the core of it, organization, discipline, etc. But that's where we need to look into a little bit deeper what discipline means and how it could actually be connected to also feminine energy. So when you think of discipline, you indeed think of this idea of structure, consistency, organization, rigidity a little bit. So power over yourself. So almost going into the idea of violence sometimes. So these are really the characteristics of the masculine discipline. Whereas the feminine discipline will look completely different. But in order to really understand that, let's look into how biological males and biological females are organized in terms of their energy fluctuations and their cycles. So for that, let's look into our little board here. And I really like to emphasize how masculine is so different from feminine. So we often say that masculine energy is kind of connected to the sun or the energy of the sun. And that's how biological males are actually fluctuating their energy, is with the sun. So day and night. Whereas for females, and I'm saying biological females, it's rather the moon. We have moon cycles, moon-based cycles. So the moon is our kind of energy leader, or we are aligned on the energy of the moon. So what that means is that for a male, the energy fluctuation goes like this. Like day, night, etc. So it's a very structured, linear way of organizing. Whereas for a female, we will have this going up and going down and going up. And here we'll have ovulation. And here we'll have menstruation. So if we look into this peak here represents the top of the energy strength, or kind of the energy outburst is during the ovulation. And this whole first follicular phase is going to be building up towards the ovulation, and our energy is rising. So a little bit like the sun rises, here with the moon, our energy is rising towards ovulation. So we are more creative, we're more active, we want to do more physical stuff and more exerting energetical movements, etc. Whereas here, after ovulation, the energy goes kind of down towards more introspective, less social, because here it goes really towards more social relationships, whereas after that, we're going down, down, and down towards menstruation, where it's really this self-care, deep rest, and also a little bit this moment of introspection here, where we look into what serves us and we kind of filter out the things that we don't like anymore, I don't know if it happens to you. It happens to me definitely during these periods where just before the time of the menstruation, you kind of rethink things and look into what happened well, what didn't happen well during the whole month. So for male, it's almost the same, but it's just that it happens on a daily basis. So every day they will have a high at midday and they will have a low at midnight or something like that. So basically, it's a very, very linear and short-term fluctuation that they have. And their hormones are also following this day and night thing, whereas our hormones, as you may know, follow the monthly cycle. So what does this mean for our idea of discipline? For a male, discipline essentially will look like this. It's a linear thing. For him, every day is a switch. It's an on and off. So he just needs super structured. He needs every day, same time, same amount. A very structured way, not chaotic, very predictable. This is how discipline looks for them. So maybe twice a day or once a day, but always at the same time. Very powerful, very organized, always the same level, always the same thing. It's not what it's going to be like for a woman. Discipline for a woman will look like this. No, it's not going to be like this, because then you'll do something for yourself only twice a month. So we're not going there. But we do want to have something every day. Our everyday practice, however, is going to be different every single time. As you can see, it will follow. First of all, yes, it will follow our cycle and our predisposition that day. But not only, because that's on paper, but then every day might be a little bit different, even with this fluctuation naturally with the monthly cycle. So it's something to take into account, but it's even further away from that. We need to look into adaptability. So the key here in discipline for women is really to listen to yourself. It's a completely different approach to the male, which kind of does that thing every day and does the same thing and always the same thing, and you don't need to even think about it. Whereas for females, it's very important to actually find that moment of consistency. So where consistency comes in is the fact that every day you do something. That's where the discipline part comes in. However, whatever you do that every day will completely change, and it will be different depending on how you feel that day. And for instance, as I mentioned, in this phase, we are going towards more physical movement, more outgoing social movement. So maybe group stuff or highly exerting stuff or creative stuff will come all into this first phase. Whereas towards the second part of the phase here, you look into more introspective activities, something that is rather more silent, maybe yin yoga, maybe something more relaxing, and that allows you to be with yourself and to pamper yourself, to give yourself the love that you need, especially here before the menstruation part, and particularly during menstruation, you know, having yourself like a very soft cocooning time so that you give yourself that softness and that care that you need during that period. So how would I recommend to actually use this and apply it to your life for your own discipline? So first of all, I would advise tracking your cycle. There's many ways you can do that. Of course, the simplest ways is just to note down where your first day of period comes in, but otherwise you could also use temperature devices that are the best way to know exactly where you stand in that cycle, because our temperatures are usually lower in this first part and then higher in the second part. So we know once the temperature rise, it means that we are around the ovulation time. And then once they stay high, that means that we're arriving towards luteal phase, and then they fall again back in the menstruation. So that's a way to exactly know where you're at and where you're standing into that part here. Second thing I would say is also set a time for your practice. So like for males here, it helps to have a reference point. So having a moment in the day where this is the time for your own practice, whatever it is, whether it's meditation, yoga, another movement practice, anything that you do that gives you this me time that you need to be disciplined about. However, you can be more flexible here. So, difference to here, the discipline in the female energy is adaptable. So yes, you have a reference time, yes, you have a moment, but you can adapt it if you see that you have moving priorities that day. We, as females, sometimes have kids, you have other obligations. You can move it around. The most important here to keep the idea of discipline is to have this idea of doing it daily. But now the form and shape it takes will vary. So third thing I would say is very important to reconnect with your body's needs. And that will happen on a daily basis and even on an hourly basis. So the moment that your practice time arrives, don't give yourself one specific objective. Rather, your objective should be just to listen to yourself and adapt your practice to whatever you feel you need that day. So whether you need to exert the energy, whether you need some hips flexibility because you feel like this is the area that you have been tight or stuck in, or for some reason that you can't explain, you need to work that, do that. So your body will actually tell you every day what it really needs. And it does tell you, sometimes we're not used to listen to it, but if we take the time to listen, we'll hear the cues that it will give us. So it also helps to have a library of movement or meditation practice or whatever it is that your practice is, because the wider your library is or playlist or whatever you're using, the more you have variety to pick from. And that variety could be taking different shapes. It could be taking the form of the shape of the exercises or movements or yoga practice that you will choose. So from high exertion to low exertion. Its length, so you could do 5 minutes if that day you really don't feel like. But I promise you, just even 5 minutes could change even your state of mind. And particularly, you will feel gratefulness for yourself for having made the time, because this will increase your own reliability towards yourself in terms of keeping your promises to yourself. Because your promise was, remember, doing something small every day. So that's where the discipline version for females comes in, is to give you this increased reliability towards yourself. And then finally, the last point is to really enjoy your practice and see it not like a punishment, but like almost like a hug towards yourself. It's like the best present you could give to your body is to listen to it. It's giving a moment for no one else but yourself. And it makes you not only more reliable towards yourself, but it makes you also more confident in your abilities, because you then know that you will never let yourself down, basically. So if you have this high reliability towards yourself, you are also becoming more self-confident, and you know that you will not self-abandon in the future. So this is where this topic connects really much to people pleasing. And for me, it was one of the major tools that I used to release from my people pleasing, because I started to be more reliable towards myself, more attuned to who I am and where I'm at that day. And that's exactly those things that a people pleaser usually lacks, especially for women. We are disconnected from whatever is happening in our bodies because we're too connected to whatever is happening outside of us. and we're taking too much information from others and not enough information from ourselves always. And by overriding our own needs, we're becoming less and less reliable towards ourselves because we are always overriding other needs over ours. So if we do this, if we create that female version of discipline in our lives, this will allow us to really help us to recenter and release from people pleasing and create those boundaries, because the boundaries will happen around each of these practices. Each of these practices will become such a priority for you that nothing else can come into that and can interfere into these practices. And that's how people pleasing was completely released for me. I promise it seems small, but it really works. It's one of the key ways to reduce it. All right, thank you for watching this video and getting until the end. If you like this video, please consider liking it, commenting, and subscribing to my channel. I really like when you do comment because these are very interesting topics and I really love to create more community around my channel. So really do mention for you how this resonates, how do you apply this in your life, and if you've never heard of this before. And in addition, if you'd like to explore more of my library, I recommend looking into my video on Do People Change? It talks more about what actually we are and how we have layers and what layers of us actually change when we say that person has changed. It's super interesting, so I really advise you to look it up. All right, thank you and see you in the next one.